Streaming live via the internet. Welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. Chat live with us weekly via ispradio.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies, providing ISP consulting, support, and hardware for wireless ISPs. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps. Mimosa Networks, providing high-density, high-bandwidth radio products. Advanced LLC, providing retail and wholesale advanced communication services by matching providers with your bandwidth needs. And by Sitel, providing reliability in surge suppression. And now your host for ISP Radio, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgess.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. I'm your host, Steve Grabiel, and I've got Dennis Burgess producing the show and co-hosting the show from St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm currently broadcasting out of the home office in Seal Beach, California. Been able to get out here and focus in on business building stuff. Imagine that, not having to put out fires, and I can focus in on the business. Like I was able to reconcile all my bank statements. I was able to update all of my network on monitoring, and I've been able to write some articles for my newsletter that I publish to my clients and subscribers. Just it's really a real benefit to me to be able to get away and not have to put out fires. And looking forward to going to Wispalooza. I leave out of here Monday from Los Angeles up to Vegas, and look forward to the show. It's always a tremendous show. Dennis, what's going on out in your neck of the woods? I know you're preparing to pack up, and I think you said your pallet is en route to Vegas. What else you got going on? What's going on out there?
Oh, man, we got so much stuff going on, as always. Obviously, we have the trade show. The Wispapalooza is just around the corner. I actually leave Friday. I'm going to be out there all week for all the events, the Backhaul Bake-Off, the Fiber Weekend, as well as, obviously, the Wispapalooza show. All of it should be really great. Obviously, we bring a lot of stuff there. I think we have a whole pallet of stuff there. Still some audio equipment, things like that, because, of course, we will be streaming the State of WISPA event live on ISP Radio. So if you're interested in watching that, if for some strange reason you haven't picked up that you should go to Wispapalooza, by the way, you should go to Wispapalooza. If you haven't picked that up from our show yet, for some strange reason, you can, of course, listen to that live online without any problems right here on ISP Radio. And you just have to go to ispradio.com, and that'll get you going right away. Other things going on, man, I'll tell you what, the industry is always interested. We have the Backhaul Bake-Off, and I don't think a lot of people know what that is. So what we have is this beautiful, I think it's an EXFO tester. I mean, these things are basically $12,000 a piece. And we have two of them that we're taking out. These are standard-based network testers. And we're going to take them out to Wispapalooza. And on Monday, we're going to sit there and take a number of different backhauls. Things such as, I'm just going to name some vendors. If they're not participating, sorry. If they are, great. But Mimosa, Ubiquity, Microtech, and several others, I think LegalWave and Cambium, etc., are going to bring their 5 gigahertz products and then some, hopefully, out to the Backhaul Bake-Off room, and they're going to set them up in different various tests, 20 megahertz, 40 megahertz, and 80 megahertz and above, and then we're going to sit there and we're going to go, what is the performance of this thing? So we're going to do standardized RFC testing, both, I believe it's RFC 2544 and Y1525. Don't quote me on the Y number because I don't remember which one it actually is anymore. Too many dang numbers to remember, if you know what I mean. But those things, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing those tests. These are standardized tests. That's the whole point, so that we can sit there and, just so you know, it's Y1564. But we're going to do those standardized tests. So we have a standardized, here is what this backhaul can do, and here is what it can do at this frame size, so on and so forth. And we'll have what we call a backhaul bake-off. So instead of you sitting out there and taking hardware and putting it up and going, hey, it works great, or no, it kind of okay works, WISPA and such, we're going to sit there and do that with the nice network testers to test with and to get those performance stats. And then there's going to be a couple of awards that we're actually going to give out. I believe that's on Wednesday night for the best signal, or not best signal, but best signal to noise. I'm sorry, megabits per hertz. A couple different ones. And as operators, if you're at Wispapalooza on Monday, make sure you stop by the bake-off room, because you have the opportunity to vote, user interface, things like that, all those types of things that you can actually go around and check out these things. And these are all production software. It's not like we're giving special software or beta software. So good stuff. Be sure to stop by. I'm sure I'll see you guys out there. I'll be out there all week. Just so everybody knows, this is the largest Wispapalooza ever. We have already surpassed the attendee count from last year. So we are going to have, again, every year the event grows. We're still growing. People are still registering. So make sure you get out there and check it out. Great time. And I hope to see everybody out there. Other things, there's definitely some product announcements that's going to be happening over there. Unfortunately, I can't name them right now, but there will be some product announcements. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot. Everybody's kind of holding back until after or during Wispapalooza for a lot of the information that's going to be coming out. So it should be a good time, and like I said, I hope to see everybody there.
Dennis, real quick question. Do you know when the live stream will happen for the State of the Union, so to speak, so people can queue in on that live?
Give me 1 second. I will have to look that up. It is listed in the Wispapalooza guide. So if we look at the guide here, let's see if I can get it here for everybody. Here we go.
And then the other thing, next week's show, I know you're busy and probably won't be broadcasting at our standard time. Any idea when we will be broadcasting from the show live?
That's a really good question. I do not have a really good answer at this point in time.
Okay.
It looks like the State of Wispa is at 11 a.m., and I believe that's Pacific time is what Vegas is in. So it's 11 a.m. Pacific time. And, of course, we'll be broadcasting a little live a little earlier, and then we'll get you to the video and the audio feed as well. So it should always be should be a really good show, but 11 a.m. Pacific time looks like that. Now, we're going to record it, so keep that in mind. It's going to be available on our webpage afterwards, so if you need to, or if you want to go back to watch it, you're more than welcome to as well.
And like we said, next week's show will be kind of to be determined on when Dennis can get away to do a show. Yeah,
it's gonna be tight. We have a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of really great sessions, and unfortunately Wednesday is actually my busiest day for sessions.
Right.
So I'm probably gonna think if we do anything, it'll probably be midday on Wednesday, probably around 12 Pacific, I think, or 12 Central, somewhere in there. So there's a couple hour window, but don't worry. You can of course always come back to our ispradio.com website and view any of those things that you've missed. And then the following week we have the Wispa recap, or the Wispapalooza recap. That's on the 21st, and we may even have a few new products out there that we can show you some images and some stats on as well. Hopefully.
Well,
hopefully
excellent.
Anyway.
And just to throw something out there, you think it'd be possible to live stream some of the bake-off?
The answer is I don't see any reason that we couldn't. However, I don't think that there's I don't think there's a whole lot that you're going to learn from a live stream on that, because it's not really a presentation. It's going to be a room. Each vendor that wishes to participate will have their table, and then we come around with the testers and do standardized testing when they're ready. So I don't know if we can. I mean, we can do a stream. It just I don't think it's going to be that interesting to watch.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Probably right.
So not too terribly interesting, I wouldn't think anyway. But you never know.
Cool.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, cool. Preparing for Wispapalooza. Of course, we'll be there next week. Well, on the show today, we're fortunate to have Simon Westlake with Sonar Software. Simon is a person developing a new billing package, I believe, and it's still in beta, but we're fortunate to have Simon on the show. Simon, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, thanks for being on the show today, Simon.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of Sonar, your experience as an ISP, if you've been one, where have you come from and where are you headed?
Well, hopefully we got enough time to go through this whole story, but I'll try and give you the abridged version a little. So I've been in the ISP industry for about 15 years or so now, and I originally started working for Time Warner Cable, so very different kind of scale than a lot of the guys that I worked with over the last 5 years or so, right? And it's funny, I talk to people about working there, and there's always these discussions in the WISP industry, right, about what hardware to use, what software to use, and whether it's billing packages or monitoring or whatever it might be. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said to me, they were asking about what big companies like Verizon and Time Warner and all these guys use, and the statement they put out was, oh, well, I'm sure they have all this custom stuff. And the reality of my experience from working at Time Warner and interacting with some of those big carriers is they certainly don't at all, right? They're all using, stuff that may be customized by a vendor, but they're all using pretty standard stuff. And Time Warner, when I was there, the billing system we had was actually a green screen on an AS400. So, if you ever look at what you're using today and think it's old-fashioned, I mean, this is way back from like the 70s. You had to go through 8 weeks of training to even learn how to use this thing. But as I worked there, one of the things that I kept running into was I would look at all these processes that were going on there and how to provision things and how we did deploying techs and all these different kinds of things, and they were amazingly inefficient. And, one of the problems when you got a company of that size is it's much easier to hire 10 more guys to try and make something faster than it is to try and fix a fundamentally broken process or to replace your software. I mean, think of the reality of them trying to replace their billing platform, right? It would be kind of stuff people get fired over, right, is making a decision like that on that kind of scale. So anyway, that was kind of where I started this whole thought process about, what is there that can be done with software to help solve some of these problems? And that was really where I began building pieces of software for, just for Time Warner at that time, but to try and solve some of these issues. And so I held a number of different official titles there. I was a network engineer there for a while. I was a project manager, but the whole time I was there, I was very lucky to have a really great boss. His name was Paul, and he really, gave me the opportunity to be able to build this stuff while I was not officially in a sort of software development role. So I built some monitoring systems for commercial customers and a bunch of stuff to automate a lot of the project management processes and that kind of thing. And that was really, I found, as I kind of ended my time there, that was way more interesting to me than a lot of the the day-to-day work I was doing. So after that, as you know, I kind of ended up at PowerCode, and that was a huge sea change for me, right? I'd lived in this world for 10 years where, you don't buy a router if it's less than $250,000, and deploying a piece of software is a multi-million-dollar endeavor. And, this is where all the phrases like nobody got fired for choosing IBM come from, right? Is that kind of scale. And, I'd started to learn a little bit about the WISP industry because we actually had a kind of coincidental run-in when I worked there with a company that's actually local to us, and they provide wireless services mostly to businesses. And these guys came to us while we worked at Time Warner and said, we can help you, because one of the things we were really challenged with was all we did was deploy fiber. That was the part of the business I worked in. We deployed fiber for businesses. And one of the areas we did it was in downtown Milwaukee. And you're in Cali, you probably don't have much interest in visiting downtown Milwaukee, but one of the things about it is it's a lot of very old buildings there, old streets, and so it's very hard to get to dig a hole in the street. And it's very hard to get right-of-ways and stuff like that. So we'd have projects where it would take us a year to deliver fiber to somebody, and this guy came in from this WISP and said, hey, we can help you, we can give us a day, and we can deploy a microwave link, and we can have your customer up, and we'll link it into your network, and then, when you get fiber in, we'll just come take it down. No big deal, just pay us month to month. And I was like, oh my God, you can do that. And so we kind of started digging into that, and looking at it more and more, and it wasn't something we could really do internally. It's a huge company, trying to get people to change the way they think is very challenging. But I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's a real opportunity. And it was something I really thought about for a while. Is there a spot in the market to do this? But anyway, through looking at this and talking to different people and things, I ended up at PowerCode, and that was something that really scratched that itch well for me, because I got to work, keep working on the software. That was really one of the things I was passionate about, but also really liked the network side. When I was at Time Warner, I was a network engineer for a long time, and I was building big MPLS networks and delivering data voice services to big customers. And so at PowerCode, the owner also had a WISP. And so, I said to him when I started there, well, I'd love to do some network stuff on the WISP as well. And it all kind of came together, right? And so, I worked through that for a few years and, learned a lot about the WISP market and some of that kind of stuff. But that's, my 10-minute version, I guess, of how we got to where we are today. And today, as we're working on Sonar with the team that I put together, a lot of those kind of core ideas I had, even 10 years ago, starting to be able to look at ways to bring those together and be able to put something out that's, I think, very different than what a lot of the other platforms look like in the market today.
Oh, I think we lost. Did we lose him? I think we lost him.
No, can you hear me?
No, we got Simon, but I don't think we got Steve.
Oh, we lost Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You have to hit that unmute button, man. We have to
I'm
unmute.
back. Yeah, the dog was barking. Anyways, Simon, quick question. When you went to work with PowerCode, PowerCode was a functional product that you were tasked to making better, or was it something from scratch that you developed?
No, it existed, right? So it had actually existed for a long time. I don't know if everyone kind of knows the backstory of PowerCode, but the very short version is it was originally built by an ISP in Utah called Digis, who some of the members of that company ended up, working on with Jab today. And so they kind of moved up through there, and it had changed hands a couple of times, and it had been purchased by another company, and they tried to monetize it. And my understanding, right back in the Digis days, I wasn't around, but my understanding there is they'd really just built it to run their own WISP. I mean, if you think 12 years ago, what were your options for provisioning wireless equipment, right? I mean, there was people putting stuff up in Tupperware containers with Linksys routers back then, right? And there really just wasn't. Well, there you go, right? So how do you provision that stuff by hand? Probably. So, they'd come up with this idea of having an inline, Linux box that would do the provisioning, so you could put up whatever you wanted, and they needed a billing system. And, and I think that's the story, really. If you look at quite a few of the platforms in the market today and you go and talk to these guys, a lot of them will tell you, yeah, we built, whatever that is, whether it's PowerCode or Azotel or Wismon or any of these other guys. A lot of the story they have is, we had a WISP, we had a need, we built some software to fill that need, and then we thought, wow, other people could maybe use this, right? That's a common story. And so in PowerCode's case, it had changed hands a couple of times and been through it, at least 2 different teams. And then the current owner of PowerCode had purchased it, and he was a customer. He had been using it for his WISP, so, he knew it pretty well. But when I came in there, it was just sort of, this is what it is. Let's see if we can do something with it. And so, we'd looked at doing some different things and rewriting different pieces and kind of moving through that process of improvement. And I think, I look back and think we were pretty successful at that, I think, and, really turned it into something that a lot of people are happy with today.
Right. So now let's talk about Sonar. Where are you at with the product? We saw the announcement that you guys are coming out with something new. Where are you at with it, and what are some of the things that set you apart from everyone that you mentioned?
Well, there's a number of things, I think. So where we're at today is we're getting ready. Hopefully by the end of this month is our plan, but don't hold me to it. But hopefully by the end of this month, we're going to put out a release that we're going to bring a few people into to test. And I don't know if you've seen kind of some of the things we've been talking about on this site, but the MO that we're going under now is that we're going to have this, what we're calling an early access program, where we deliver one module at a time. The first one that we're going to put out is going to be billing CRM and an online bill pay component for customers. And then people that come to us and say, that's all I need today, right? And maybe they're only using QuickBooks and they want something else. And they say, wow, this looks great. We want to use that. We put them on a list. We, make some determinations about how many people want to bring in at a time. And then we bring people in one by one to be able to start using the platform. Our kind of original plan had been radio silence until it's done. I think there's a big kind of thing that goes on in this industry where people talk about stuff 2 years before it's ready, right? And by the time it comes out, you go, yeah, okay, I heard about this 2 years ago. We didn't really want to do that. But what we found is we were working on this and people were calling me, right, and emailing me and saying, what are you doing? And can you help me with this? And that kind of thing was that as we talk to people about it, they go, well, hey, we don't need all that stuff, right? We're actually be perfectly happy if you can deliver us, I don't know, billing, ticketing, and provisioning. I don't care about scheduling or I don't care about monitoring, and that's where this whole kind of modular-based plan came from. So that's where we are today. We're just coming up on getting that billing CRM, online bill payout, and then we're working on inventory and IPAM after that, and then probably moving into provisioning is the plan as it stands. So what makes it different, I think, is we're really coming at this with kind of a different focus, right, is one of the things. So I've talked to a lot of WISPs over the last couple of years who are drastically changing their businesses. When I first got into this, I would say when I went to shows and when I talked to people on the phone, 90% of WISPs probably had hundreds of customers. It was, a guy and his wife, a guy and his son, something like that, where they put together a business where they wanted to deliver internet into some community. They were trying to build a small business for themselves. And some of them would kind of get to this point, right, where they had 700 or 800 subs and they go, I'm done. I don't want to deal with anything beyond this. This is enough for me. And there's still people doing that today. But what I've seen over the last couple of years has really been a push where I'm seeing a lot more WISPs where they're doing tons of acquisitions or they're really trying to grow to a much bigger scale into the thousands, tens of thousands. We even have a couple out there like Jab, right, where they've gotten into the hundreds of thousands. And this is happening all around the world even. We were really talking to people in Africa. We're talking to people in South America. We're talking to people in Europe. And it's, something's kind of changed there. And so one of the things we're trying to do is build something to make that easier. I think if you talk to a lot of WISPs today that have done any acquisitions, they're going to tell you it's a nightmare, right? You've got getting all your customers into your billing and management platform. The guy I'm buying, well, I'm all Cambium. He's all Ubiquity or MikroTik, or he's a mix of stuff. And there's all these issues, right? And so that's one of the things we really want to solve that I think is tough today is how do you take this disparate network where all the data is in a different system and all the provisioning is different and have a really easy way to bring it in. And so we're committed to solving that problem for people so that these guys out there doing a lot of acquisitions can just think about, is this worth it, right? Not, oh my God, how am I going to deal with the back office piece of this? And that ties into it. Go ahead, Williams.
That's interesting that you're doing it to dovetail existing operations into an acquisition. That's wow, that's something to consider.
Well, I think it's critical. I mean, I think when you guys go to Wispapalooza, my challenge would be go around and talk to people and ask these WISPs that are not in that mindset. And honestly, I got no issue with these guys who have a small WISP and they want to keep it that way. I think it's a perfectly good business, but I would go to the guys that, are not looking at it that way and ask them how many acquisitions have they done in the last 2 years. And I would be willing to bet if you had done that poll 3 years ago, you would have heard most people say, I haven't done one and I don't plan on it. Whereas today, most of the guys that I've spoken to that are in the sort of thousands of sub range say, yeah, I've already done 3 and I got 2 more on my radar. And consistently, they always say, but it's a nightmare. I end up forklifting the whole network because I don't have a way to provision, whatever, MikroTik, right? Or they say, now I'm running 2 separate billing systems and I'm trying to manage all this. And, I think that's a real problem. That's something where you buy a network for $1 million, but you're sinking another $1 million on the back end because you can't integrate it. And then there's the ongoing support aspect of that too, right? Now you're training all your staff on 2 systems, and that's something we're really committed to having a good solution for.
Good. Dennis, got any questions?
Yeah, so you're really tailoring this after those people not necessarily the small WISPs. You want the guys that are acquiring WISPs and have a easy method for authentication and bill payment, basically, on those. So I know you haven't said a whole lot, but on the technical side, maybe you can't go into it, and I understand if you can't. But I mean, is this going to be a radius system? Is this going to be a box that you have to put in front of the network? Is it going to, what kind of system is it? What's the general feel of it?
Yeah, I certainly answer that. So one of the things I do want to say is we're definitely not saying we just want to go after these guys doing acquisitions. I think that us solving a lot of these problems is actually going to incrementally solve issues for the smaller guys as well. I mean, we're looking at things like if you got a big WISP and they're doing acquisitions, for example, what's another problem they have? Scaling, right? Let's say you've got 8,000 subs today, and tomorrow you've got 12, and then in a year you've got 20. If you have a system that doesn't scale to that, you've got yet another problem to deal with, and now I have 20,000 subs in the system that can't handle 20,000 subs. And so we're building a lot. We're testing in the kind of millions of accounts range, right? Where a lot of the stuff we're doing, we say, okay, how does this run with 1 million accounts in here? How does it run with 5 million? And I can't imagine a day we're going to deal with a WISP with 5 million accounts, but it's kind of solving those problems up front. But a lot of that stuff trickles down to the small guys too. If we make things really fast and we make them really efficient, it still helps the smaller guys. So to answer your question about the technical side, we're actually looking at a really hybrid approach, right? We're looking at something where I think today, if you look at a lot of systems, there's a kind of all-in-one solution. They come to you and they say, you can do radius. Or maybe there's more than one option, right? Maybe you can do radius, you can do PPPoE, or you can do some kind of inline device, or we can write scripts to manipulate some microticket head end, or it's that kind of thing. What we're looking to do instead is to have something a lot more flexible where you can take a variety of different provisioning methods. So you could have part of your network that's PPPoE. You could have part that's in line with a SASI device or a Procera or a microtik or whatever it might be. And there's another part of your network that you're doing with, I don't know, DHCP and something else, right? And to be able to take that network and break it up from a technical perspective and say, this portion with these subnets or off these routers or whatever it might be, we're going to provision in this way. This portion we're going to provision in this way. And then this portion over here, if it's Cambium, we're going to provision it like this. If it's Ubiquity, we're going to provision it like this. And, that sounds probably complicated. And, I think it is complicated. But it's something I think we've kind of done some proof of concept stuff internally, and we figured out how we're going to do this. And that's really our goal, is to go to someone and they say, this is how my network runs today. And I'm going to buy this network, and this is how this network runs today. And we go, yeah, okay, that's fine, right? You just do this here and you do this here, and now you can leave them both running that way, or if you want to transition, you can. But that's our end game, right? Is that really we've built something that's agnostic enough that if you were to come to me and say, I'm using, I don't know, Cisco, right? Or I'm using Juniper, I'm using anything, we can say, okay, we support that today, or we don't, but it's very easy for us to plug it in. The goal is for this to really be a big jigsaw puzzle, and you bring the pieces and we figure out what we need to do to get them to fit.
So back to Dennis's question, is this like, do you envision this as a hosted solution on your own stuff, or if someone comes to you and says they want to join up, will they have to buy a box and then put the Linux stuff on it?
So the simplest way to deploy this is going to be a cloud-based, and we'll certainly have that as an option. And the reason I say that's the simplest is we're already far beyond, people say to me, is this running on Linux with MySQL and Apache? And the answer is no, and there's about 50 other things in the background as well. And so the actual deployment of this product is a little more complex, and it's a lot easier for us to manage in the cloud. One of the ways we're dealing with the scaling of it is we can take, let's say your system is hitting its resource limit. We built this in a way that we can fire up a second server, and we can move some services over to that server, and they can scale independently, and we can tie together 10 instances of one of the databases we're using, for example, and get 10 times the throughput. So it's easier for us to do it that way. That being said, the end game here is that we can deliver this as something local if people want it. I don't think you'll see it being something as simple as, here's an install script, run it. It's probably going to be more, maybe either an appliance-based thing, or we'll deliver some kind of VM or something like that where it's pre-built. But I think, we saw the response with their CRM, and we see on our forum, there's a big thread on the Sonar forum right now from people saying if it's in the cloud, forget about it. So, we recognize that, and we're going to need a solution for those people. So the intent is to have something. But I think within the early access program, at least for the next few months, that's all going to be cloud-based. We're not going to solve that local thing until we get closer to release.
Right.
So
Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, I got something. So when we had kind of already mentioned a number of things, is there any breathtaking or awesome features that you are extremely proud of that all of a sudden you go, hey, we've done this before, or somebody's done this before, but now we took a different approach, and it's just cool as hell. You have to try it out now. Is there anything that we're gonna see that everybody's just gonna go boom, and my mind's blown, I can't believe it's so simple?
Well, that's an interesting question to answer, and it's difficult because I think probably in most people's minds, billing and kind of back office software is one of the most uninteresting things to talk about, right? So anything really exciting.
No. Cash flow.
Well, it might excite you guys. Yeah, it might excite you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So, generally speaking, one of the things we're really proud of is the scaling that we have got out of this software. I'll give you one specific example that we were working on. One of the big problems we had, and you can probably even speak to this, Dennis, with tower coverage and the mapping, is with most of these mapping libraries out there, whether you're using Google or Bing or Nokia or whoever you might be using, as soon as you draw more than a couple of thousand dots on a map, it's really difficult to use. It's sluggish, and it doesn't scale very well. And so one of the problems we had as we got into the scaling question was how do we solve that, right? That's actually a very difficult problem to solve, probably more so than it sounds. And so we experimented with a bunch of different things, but after a few weeks of hacking around, we were able to put a map together where on a pretty basic computer, we could render hundreds of thousands of points on this map at 60 frames a second. And that's kind of a tedious technical accomplishment, I guess. But we were pretty excited about that because it was really a kind of proof of those steps where, we don't ever want to have to say to somebody, yeah, we have this feature, but just, don't try and use it too much, right? Because it's not going to scale to that. I think the provisioning piece, we're pretty excited about. And there's a lot of small pieces that we've really taken, a lot of things we've experienced, whether it's been from talking to WISPs or the time I spend at Time Warner or whatever it might be, where we're bringing individual things and thinking, how can we deliver this in a way that's different? We've built an online bill pay system that people can get into without pre-registering accounts. And again, that's not super exciting, but I think this is one of the things we'd always deal with deploying things like PowerCode is people would come and go, well, I got 10,000 subs. How am I going to deliver all this account information to them? How am I going to train them to log in? And we've got, I think, a pretty novel solution to solving problems like that. And then just, our interface, right? I'm really excited to be able to show this to some of you guys because we have built things in here like you can real-time search the entire Sonar database. So anything, any entity, whether it's an account or a piece of equipment or a ticket or a work order or whatever it might be, you can search that in real time. And we've tested this with about 10 million entities in the database, and you can search partial match on any of that stuff in less than a second. And, that's stuff I think you can really look at and go, okay, well, I have, all these things that you're laying out. Now my staff can do more work than they could do before, and now I'm able to do these things I couldn't do before because it took too long or it was too complicated. And it's a lot of that incremental stuff, right? I think you're probably not going to look at one piece of Sonar by itself and go, holy cow, this is life-altering, just because, billing's billing, right? Provisioning's provisioning and monitoring's monitoring. But I think you are going to look at them and go, wow, this is really a huge change from what I'm used to, whether it's, scaling or whether it's the UI or whether it's the feature set.
Excellent. We did have a couple questions on our chat, and I think these are pretty straightforward questions, and I have one more question, of course, and that is, the very first one is, will it work, or is there going to be integration with Procera?
Yes. The plan is for there to be. The plan is really for us to integrate it with as many things as we can. I want to get it working with, Seisai is one of the guys that I'm interested in working with, Procera would be another one. I mean, we're looking at what the options are in the market that people are using. I mean, there's a point of diminishing returns, right? Where if we go out and look for every single DPI platform in existence and say we're going to implement it, no one uses it, who cares? But the answer, I think, if anyone was to ask, will it support X? And we're talking about some kind of provisioning system or some kind of inline, DPI or anything like that. If it's something someone wants to use, I mean, our goal would be to support that. So, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So the next thing is then, is there going to be a customer portal where they can log in, and the best thing is to see metadata, things like usage, etc.?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be able to deliver something there that's kind of next gen to all that stuff, right? So, I mean, you're going to have the basics there where you can pay your bill and you can see your usage and that kind of stuff, but I'd really like to be able to capture more data than that if we can. And some of that's going to differ ISP by ISP. I guess one of the things I didn't mention that would be good to bring up is one of the big pieces we're building in Sonar is an API for everything. We have a REST API for every single function in Sonar. So hypothetically, if you hate the interface we build, you could build your own and layer it on top. And that's going to extend to the portal as well. And one of the things we saw a lot of PowerCode was people saying, I want this in a portal, I want this in a portal, I want this in a portal. And it was very user specific. So by delivering this API, we'll be able to say to people, we can build you a completely custom portal, or you can build it yourself, or you can hire someone else to do it. And that's something else we're very committed to is, having that API to integrate with every single piece of the platform.
And obviously, me and you've already talked about getting our the tower coverage integration into it, and obviously they'll come along as people request it, etc. So I'm really glad. Now, for me, the big feature request that I have is, of course, IPv6.
Yeah.
Yes.
I beat you up on that one before on other things, but I'm assuming full IPv6 support's going to be integrated.
Yes, completely with everything, right? I mean, IPAM, provisioning, monitoring, all that stuff. I mean, I don't think it's even a choice anymore, right? I mean, if you look at the lists, it's the biggest thing people are saying is complaining at such and such, Cambium, whoever it might be, that they don't have IPv6 and this and that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's not even a choice anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a requirement nowadays. I mean, you have the exhaustion of our IPv4 in here in North America, so you have to be going. If you're not going V6 right now, you're already behind. You should have went V6 a year ago. And I cannot stress that enough because it is coming. It's actually not even coming. It's already here. There are no more IPv4 IP addresses. I have a number of clients that we have requested even small blocks /22s and /23s for, and they have been approved, but they have not got those yet because there are none. They're just on a waiting list. And right now, I'll be honest with you, in the past 2 weeks, your average price per IP on auction has already went up $2. It went from $8 to $10 in about a week and a half. So you're already seeing the increase of cost now that the pool is exhausted and we cannot get any more errand blocks. So if you don't have V6, you should already be on it. So the last question we got another question here on our chat, which is a very good question, and obviously it may be a little early for this because the product isn't fully released yet, but is this going to be licensed on a per month, per subscriber, flat fee? How is each module going to be licensed so you can have a small portion or a big portion? What is the goal of your licensing and or fee strategy?
Okay, so I'll preface this by saying that we haven't completely decided what this is all going to look like yet, so anything I say is subject to change. But that being said, I think there will certainly be an option for a model where there's something on a per subscriber basis. And I know there's always a lot of discussion about this on the shows and online, and people for and against it. And I think there is, one thing I'd like to say about it that was the stance I always had when I talked to people about this in the past is outside of the fact that obviously, you have to spend more money the bigger you get, it's actually a pretty good model for most people, for both the ISP and the software. Because the reason I say that is when you have a model like that, as you grow, right, the software is helping you grow. As you grow, you generate more revenue. You're paying that towards that company. primary concern is now keeping you happy. Their primary concern is delivering features to you that keep you happy and keep you wanting to use that software. And the opposite is more of a Cisco model like that, where you spend a lot of money up front. And the reality is, if you give me $50,000 and I don't know when I'm going to get any more money from you, the guy that's more important to me is the next guy that's going to give me $50,000 and not you anymore, right? We're past that discussion. You've signed, and here you get what I'm giving you. And so I do think that ongoing model is good, because you end up with organizations otherwise that are very sales heavy, right? They got 20 sales guys to maintain revenue and 3 devs. I want to see 20 devs, and let's forget about the sales guys. But that being said, I think we are talking about the option for other models. There may be, as an example, we may have something where if you want to install it locally, maybe you want it on an appliance, we'll sell you an upfront license for that version, and then there'd be some kind of fee to upgrade to the next version for support and things like that. And we're still throwing that around and trying to figure it out. I think the reality of those kind of models is you end up spending about the same either way, really. You end up in a situation where, unless you're happy staying on an old version that's not getting updated anymore, you end up paying the support and maintenance contract and stuff anyway. But we are definitely talking about it. That's another thread that's been pretty active on our forum, and we're looking at a lot of the feedback we're getting and trying to figure out the right way to go. But I think there will be an option for per sub. It just may not be the only one. There might be other ones as well.
So multiple different pricing models depending on what you want. And I would agree with you on the fact is, a lot of people dwell on, I have to pay it on a monthly basis, or I have to pay for support and all this kind of stuff. But in general, especially on a billing system, this is a system that runs your business. You need to have support for that. You need to have bug fixes, things like that. As things come up, you need to have those. And they're very, very important. I'm going to give you, everybody here anyway, a good thought process is this. Right now, the primary method for processing credit cards is either via the swipe on the side, or for most of us, it is just a keyed entry, so what we call card not present. Now, in the next 2 years, we're going to have those wonderful little chips on our cards. All my cards already have them. It's coming. So the next thing is what happens whenever your software gets outdated and there's no way to process those chips, because there is no more swipe. There is no more card number that you can use. So this is always a good thing. It's a good thing that you have that support, that you have product updates, etc. I'm going to give another example. We use a software that we actually do reselling called Screen Connect. And it's a great little piece of software for remote support. We resell it quite often, and it's very inexpensive. And what's really nice is people think, hey, I'm going to buy it once, I'm never going to use it again. But every year, or constantly they have updates, number one. Those updates are new features or new bug fixes and things like that. But they also sit there and come out with these nifty new features, a new Android app, a new iPhone app, all this kind of extra stuff. And whenever we look at the cost of upgrading versus the cost of switching to a new software, the cost to upgrade and to maintain the software is definitely cheaper than it is to sit there and buy it once and then deal with all the problems that you may have from outdated software. And it doesn't matter who you are. There's always going to be bugs that are found. There's going to be issues that need to be patched. We have the SSL v3 vulnerability. We have all these different things that are out there that 2 months from now, this whole process, this whole web server may need to be changed because of a problem that's found. And that's why you pay a software developer to ensure that those products are up to date, and why you want to have up to date products. I hate to see people on billing platforms that are ancient and have very difficult ways of getting data in and out of them. Another good story is I had a customer that had an old Unix system, SCO Open Server. And the problem was that, and this wasn't that long ago either, the problem was that they couldn't do anything with the data. Everything was in this database that no one had access to, no one could touch, and they really couldn't do any nifty or change pricing or anything that they really needed to do because of the type of database. And this software is so ancient that nobody updates it. It hasn't been updated in 10 years. What do you expect? So I definitely see the per user model. People think that's they don't like that, but as you grow, keep this in mind also. As you grow, your usage of the system goes up. And instead of you having yourself and your wife or your business partner using the system, now you have 2 sales guys plus 3 techs all using the same software. So your usage is going up. And especially if it's a hosted model, you're using more resources on servers. As users are authenticating, those more users are using more resources. So you're only paying for what you use, but then again, as you use more, you pay more. So it's a good thing.
I think there's one other piece of this as well I look at is, it's a very interesting kind of dichotomy of the two people that I would end up talking to a lot of the time in my last job. And you'd have guys that would come to you and, they might have a pretty big ISP. And there's always that period before you've told them the price that you kind of sit there and go, what's their reaction going to be, right? Are they going to go, oh my God, or are they going to go, wow, that's it, And we would deal with some of these guys that had big ISPs and they'd grown big without a good platform in place. And, we might say to them, it's going to cost you $10,000 a month. And they go, oh my God, sign me up, right? Because they had realized they'd looked at where they were today. They brought in 10 new staff members, or they were spending all this time doing whatever it might be, right? Manually reconciling all kinds of stuff and not knowing where their techs are and losing inventory and all kinds of different things. And to them, that's a good deal. And I think, the challenge I would put to anybody would be to really look at the cost of something like that and try to go back against your business and see, will I save this much money by paying this? And if the answer is no, it probably isn't a good fit for you then. And I would tell people that even if I'm selling them something. But I think a lot of the time you can go back and say, I can already identify 5 things that are going to save me 400 man hours a month, or, whatever it might be, or are going to help me not lose inventory, or are going to help me collect money. We would frequently find when we would deploy PowerCode for people and they had been using something like QuickBooks in the past, that inevitably they would find 10, 50, 100 people that they'd been giving service to that they either weren't billing them at all or they weren't billing them the correct amount. So there's a lot of stuff like that out there, and I think it can be tough to identify, but I think it's a really important thing to consider. And, a part of that I would say with any platform is being able to talk to the people building it, and they should be able to help you answer that question for yourself as well. But I think it is an important question to ask.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna share everybody. I'm gonna share another story. I'm sorry, I like sharing stories because this is how we pass information along. I did have a customer that switched to a different billing platform. We're not gonna say which one. It doesn't matter. They finally went to a billing platform from QuickBooks, and you don't think that this is a big deal. The first 2 months, they received over 600 calls from people that either no longer had service or never had service, asking for why can't I get my DVD player hooked up to my Wi-Fi, and all these other odd questions. But originally, whenever they were with QuickBooks, they had no ticket system that took the customer request from here and moved it to and associated it with a customer account. So with the new system, they had to associate anybody that called in. They had to take, here's your account. You're calling on this account, so that's where the ticket's going to go. And now all of a sudden they go, well, I don't have an account for you. And then people go, well, I'm buying internet from you. And they end up looking back in the old system and finding out they canceled and switched to DSL, 5 months prior. And just think about the man hours, 600 calls in 2 months. You figure half of those are 30 to an hour long. That's a lot of man hours just because they implemented the billing system, that one thing. That doesn't even talk about how we simplified processes, how things are quicker and easier. So lots of, there's as you just said, there's a lot of extra things that you don't even think about or that you should be thinking about, but a lot of people don't think about whenever we go through those things.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, and I'm a transition from QuickBooks to your predecessor, PowerCode, and we've talked about this before with the other billing companies out there. If you're on QuickBooks, folks, leave. I was able to in the transition, and transition's hard. It took me 3-4 months to get where I'm at, but I'll tell you what. I've saved manpower in having to do the manual stuff I had to do with QuickBooks. and my cash flow has dramatically improved. I have not yet to turn on my billing management unit to force all that traffic through there, because once I do, people that are delinquent, they're going to get that splash page saying pay your bill. So I've been gently getting them up to speed to, you better get used to your portal, and you have full control of how you pay us and how you interact with us. But in a cash flow situation, I am turning a lot more money quicker, and that makes me so much happier. I'm not worried about, am I going to be able to make payroll? So going to a billing platform away from QuickBooks is, you have to do it. It's that simple.
That would be another great poll to take at the show, because I mean, I will tell you, every single person I've ever worked with, regardless of the system they've gone to, this isn't even people that were, customers of mine back when I was at PowerCode, but anyone I've ever spoken to, when they're using something without automation and they implement automation, they universally are amazed at how much money they're throwing away. And I had a pretty big ISP that I was working with that had thousands of customers, and they had consistently about 2,000 delinquent customers every month. And I helped them to put, delinquent redirect in place and that kind of stuff. And we sent out one email to all the customer base saying, hey, as of this date, if you're delinquent on your bill, you're going to see a splash page. You can click here to log in and pay. Here's your login information. And we turned it on. And the next month I went and looked, and they had 86. From 2000, they had 86. And I said to them, how many complaints did you get? And they said, I don't think we got any. Because these people all knew they weren't paying the bill. It's just, why bother if you get away with it, right? If you're going to give me service for free, I guess I'll take it. But when they turned it on, they all just started paying. And, they realized, God, whatever 2,000 subs or whatever their average rate is, you got to think it's at least $60, $50, right? So, that's a huge amount of money that's sitting out there. And that doesn't include people that are multi-month delinquent and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think there's real tangible benefits there to doing stuff like that. And like you're saying, right, you gain on top of that all this automation. And I think, take your cash flow change, right? Does that offset the cost of the platform? And, probably comes pretty close, if not exceed.
In my case, absolutely. From changing from merchant services into it to my new processor, IPPay, which brings me to my next question. Will Sonar interact with IPPay, authorized.net, all the common gateways?
Yeah, is the brief answer. One of the things that we challenged ourselves with when we deployed this was worldwide payment processor coverage, and that seemed like a tall order, but it did actually end up being as hard as we thought. But I said when we start this, I want every single country in the world to be able to run credit cards through Sonar, and so we're going to deliver that. And so you'll see, the big ones like Authorize and those kind of guys, and we'll have IPPay, and I think at this point we've got 4 or 5 or something that are completed, but we built in such a way that it's really, really easy for us to add new processors. I was talking to one of the guys the other day about how, we were working on adding one for Canada, and it took an afternoon. And so I think the reality is if anybody comes and says, do you support X processor, we'll say either yes or we will tomorrow.
Yeah. We sell a software called HS Network Manager, which is a hotspot network manager, and literally it took them about 3 days to add authorized.net support. So most of those guys are very well documented, and it's pretty easy to add. It's just a matter of actually getting a person on it. So exactly, have the time to actually do it. So actually I have another story. Again, we're going to keep going back to stories. A customer that had a hotspot. It actually wasn't a hotspot. It was a 4,400 unit DSL network that they would turn on individual modems on and off, and people would come in for about 4 months out of the year, and then they would leave. So it's what we call snowbird park, and that's what they had. And they, during that time when people start coming in, they actually hired 4 temps to come in and sit there and answer the phone calls, and then take, okay, here's your unit number. They paid. Now go over to a person that's in the company that can actually get into the equipment and actually turn on a DSL port on a DSLAM. And that's literally, they went through this, for 6 years, and the amount of man hours, and when I mean 5 temps, I mean 5 full-time people answering the phones, trying to get credit card off. We implemented just a simple pay-as-you-go hotspot. You can use it anywhere. We turned on all the modems. All the modems were a hotspot, and the first time they did this, they had about 6 calls of people going, "Oh, I just want to turn it on," and then we go, "Well, you just plug in and pay online." And the amount of man hours that they saved instantly was worth the support and setup of that. So very good stuff. So we have a couple more questions. TR69, yes, no?
Yes, is the intent. I don't have it today, so
What's
it's something we're looking at.
TR69?
It is actually an interesting protocol. So it's something that was built for solving a problem with really provisioning stuff at the customer prem. So to give a basic example, let's say you sell a wireless router to a customer, right? And it's inside their network, right? It's behind your modem or your radio, whatever it is. And that customer calls in and they say, I don't know, I want to change my WPA key, if they even know what that is, or I want to change my SSID, right, or something like that. So historically, how would you do that, right? You'd probably have some way that someone in the office would log in and change it, and hopefully they record it, and yada yada, right? And that's a pretty tedious way of doing it. So by using TR069, it's a protocol that's in place that you can do things like take that AP or that router or whatever you have and say, change the SSID to X, or change WPA key to Y. And the real power in that is the automation of it, right? Because you could have a customer portal where someone could log in and just change their SSID on the fly, or change their subnet mask on their router, or I mean, really anything that's supported in there. And there's guys in the WISP market that are delivering units that support this today, like ReadyNet. I know they have some, and so it's something we're committed to doing. I don't know at what phase we'll get to that point, but we've already been looking at good ways to do that, and ways to simplify that. And that's really stuff like that's the core of what we're about, I think. I mean, I'm all about automation. I hate, anytime I see somebody copying and pasting stuff from one Excel sheet to another, or logging into stuff and writing it down and saving it in Dropbox and, whatever it might be. I mean, that stuff drives me nuts. So, yeah, I'm really excited about being able to do stuff like TR069 and a lot of this kind of automated provisioning and that kind of thing is what gets me going. So, yes. The answer is
Excellent,
yes.
excellent. So the last portion is we were talking about QuickBooks, and there are several billing platforms out there that sit there and do the billing, and they do the automation and the turning off, and they get all that data out there. But what they don't include is inventory, accounts payable, accounts receivable, to get into the accounting aspect of this. Is it your goal that you're going to be able to replace all that, or are you just going to do the billing aspect and that aspect, and then they're still going to have some type of, quote, billing system that they may need?
So I would say today it's unlikely that we'll do things like accounts payable. I mean, inventory we're going to do. But one of the things that was very important to us when we started this was delivering a system that made doing that kind of stuff very easy. One of the challenges that I hear over and over again in the WISP community in general is my accountant hates using, the platform I have, whatever it might be. It's a common statement. My accountant hates it. Why can't you push this all into QuickBooks and that kind of thing? So we're looking at that. We're looking to be able to interface this with things like QuickBooks and FreshBooks. But the other thing that we did when we started, before we even started building the billing system, is we went and we found an accountant that actually deals with ISPs and sat down with her for a long time. We spent months going back and forth talking to her and said, if we were going to build a billing system that you would love for this ISP, if we were going to build a billing system where you could log into it and get the data you need in 5 minutes and put it into QuickBooks, what would it look like? And so she laid that all out, and we built that. And then we sat down with her and said, okay, so then what about when this happens, right? What about when this happens? And she'd say, okay, well, it needs to do this, it needs to do that. So that's how we built it, right? And then when that was done, we came at it and said, okay, well, now we built the billing system that accountants are going to love, but everyone else is going to hate because it's so complex. So then we had to build a kind of interface on top of that to simplify. If you're a guy on the phone, right, you're just taking payments, you don't probably want to think about what invoice it gets applied to, and is this a deposit that gets split into 3 pieces and applied to different invoices? You just want to apply the payment, and the system should figure most of that out for you. And so we went and did that. So I think when people see this, I think from an accountant perspective, they're going to be very happy with it, because that's how we approach this, right? I don't want to build another system where people look at it and go, I can't get the data I want out of this. I can't report properly, or my accountant doesn't like it, or it's got to be built from the core with all those things in mind to make that simple. And so that was our approach.
Excellent. Steve, you got anything more? I think we answered all of our questions on our chat.
I've got something on the, like I said, I bought your predecessor PowerCode's system, and they had some pretty decent training on YouTube and stuff, but it didn't really focus in on my specific needs. How can you, everyone runs their own network differently, and they try to dovetail their system into the existing system.
Yeah.
It would be, and I even created a video for my customers of how to interact with their portal, and I sent it to PowerCode. But if you could have something where your community throws stuff out there on simple stuff like that, do you envision anything like that? Because for me, it's been watching the videos that PowerCode put out there, but then having to adapt it to my specific situation. Does Sonar look at that and go, we can create training videos to, help ease the burden from, doing because mine was basic forklift. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a majority of people, if they're going to be coming to Sonar with the same thing, they're going to be forklifting from maybe another billing system or from just QuickBooks alone.
Right. This was a really critical issue for us to solve. This was something we sat down from the beginning and said, how do we solve this? Because one of the things that we're doing that I don't think we really talked about is if you go to our website right now and you create an account and you log in, there's a section in there called instances, and you can click in there, and you need an early access key today to provision one, but once we go live, you'll just be able to put in a credit card. And what you're able to do there is just say, I want to use Sonar, right? And so you click a button and you wait about 60 seconds, and you're going to get an email saying, okay, your VM is up. Here's the IP to log in. Here's your temporary password, and you can log in and you have access to it, right? You've got Sonar. That's how simple it is. But I want people to be able to do that and then keep moving forward, right? If that's all they can do and then they have to call us because they don't know how to use it, well, it's a completely pointless exercise to build this whole provisioning interface. So within the software itself, we have documentation available. It documents every part of the system, and whenever you're on a page, it will ignore it, but page. And for some, it's pretty basic, right? You're filling in a couple of fields, but for the kind of things you're talking about, there'd be a lot more in-depth info. You can also contribute to this. So if you wanted to write a piece of documentation for your own staff for a particular page or section or whatever, you can write that and contribute it. And then our plan on stuff like videos is to have a public site that you'll be able to go to where we're going to publish videos on. Here's a kind of overarching methodology of doing all these things together, because I think the documentation is going to be more focused on, okay, I want to do X. How do I do X, right? And that's documented. The video will be more like, okay, so you have a network, right? And you need to do this. Let's step through this. Here are the different pieces to it. And that, it's important to us to deliver that, because our end game would be, Stephen, let's say you said, I want to use Sonar, right? I want you to be able to go to our site, sign up, provision a VM, and never have to call us. Whether we reach that goal, I don't know. It's a lofty goal, but that is our goal. Is that people that have kind of a standard setup where they're looking to migrate data from something, or they have a network and they're using, whether it's PPPoE or whatever today, there's these different things they need to know how to do, and we can deliver all that info to them quickly, and they can do it themselves. Because I think there's an argument some people make that it's very important that there's someone you can talk to, and that you go through this process with someone and they train you. And I think that's true to a degree, but I think most people want to be empowered. I think most people find it overwhelming. When I log into a website or a piece of software or anything, I think about this very carefully, because I realize how it is for other people. If I log into something and I just go, oh my God, where do I start? It's immediately off-putting, right? You're starting off from a position of, fear and trepidation, and, I want to give this to someone, and they go, oh yeah, I know, I can follow this. This is simple. So that's our goal. I guess, we'll get people telling us how well we're hitting it, but that's something very important to me, and, we really want to make sure we do everything we can to try and reach that.
Right. And in my case, it took, from the sign up to about 6 months to get comfortable to where the telephone calls into the call center tapered off to where we're pretty much self-functioning now. But they treated us pretty well, and they still continue to do us right. So, but yeah, that's a big component, is the training for the WISP, getting them up to speed as quickly as they can. And you're right. If you can, since you're writing this stuff from scratch, and you know what you want, that's a huge component. Like I said, if you can mitigate a lot of that frustration, you're going to have a lot of happy WISP community.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and I think the other thing with that too is it's letting people know what it's capable of, right? I would tell you, it used to be a running joke, and I mean, it really drove me nuts in the office, but we go to shows, and people come up to us and they go, oh, I love the software. I just wish it could do this thing. And I go, I can. Like, it's been able to do that for 3 years. And I
Right.
go, oh. And so you really, especially the bigger a piece of software gets, if you don't have that stuff well documented and you're not putting that in front of people, I mean, they just don't know, right? There's always that core of guys who are really fascinated by the thing they're playing with, and whether that's their management software or Procera or, MikroTik or whatever. And there's these guys who just spend all day messing with it and they know everything. But most people aren't like that, right? Most people just say, I need to do this. How do I do it? And they figure out a way to do it, and they do it. And if they do it in an inefficient way, well, that's what they know, right? So, I mean, I think it is, it's an important thing for us to make sure we're getting people to a point where they are doing it efficiently and they're doing it well, because that's the whole point. And I mean, that's the whole point of deploying something like this. So.
Well, Dennis, I think that we're pretty close to being done. Simon, you got anything else you want to mention about your new product? Maybe contact information, website, and such?
Yeah, just thanks to you guys for letting me do this show. It's been great. For anyone listening, if you're interested in learning more, our site is sonar.software. And we also have a forum up at sonar.community you can go to. And if you go to the site, you can register to want to be part of the early access program. And on the forum, I mean, we'd love to get as much input and discussion as we can, because that's really what helps drive this. So, but thanks again to you guys for giving me the time. I know I talked a lot.
No, it was all good. Dennis, you got anything else prior to heading out to Wispalooza?
I think we're pretty good. There's lots of great information. I look forward to seeing the software as it comes out, etc. And then, of course, everybody that's going to Wispapalooza, I look forward to you. Make sure you come up, say hi. I want to meet everybody. That's what we like to do. And we'll continue fighting the good fight. And like I said, we'll see you guys out there. And Simon, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank
Exactly.
you.
Thank you, Simon. All right, we'll see you guys in Wispalooza. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.